happens when a state is just failing, like bankrupt or facing a total existential threat. Because when the walls are closing in, a nation doesn't usually need some polite, middle-of-the-road manager. No, it needs absolute and often really ruthless disruption just to survive. So today, we're going to get into the psychology and, honestly, the sheer audacity of leaders who took absolute control to try and save their realms.
We're basically putting three massive historical figures on trial today. We're going to look at the data, the historical records, and the really tough actions they took when their nations were literally on the brink of collapse. I'm just going to present the evidence to you, and by the end of this, I want you to act as the jury and decide their ultimate legacy. Are we looking at visionary heroes, complex myths, or just ruthless dictators?
Here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the burden of power. Then we'll dive into Tipu Sultan, the innovator. Third is Abdul Hamid, last guardian. Fourth, we've got MBS, the modern disruptor. And finally, we'll wrap up with history's verdict.
All right, starting this off, Section 1, the burden of power. Look, none of the leaders we're talking about today inherited a peaceful, stable, golden age. Not at all. They inherited massive external threats, deep internal decay, and the terrifying reality that without making impossible, sweeping decisions, their nations would just cease to exist. To protect their realms from being totally devoured, they faced what's called the dictator's dilemma. Think about it. A sinking ship can't really be saved by a committee, right? It needs a strong captain. But centralizing all that power usually requires crushing dissent, and often doing it ruthlessly. Let's see exactly how this played out with our very first subject.
Which brings us to Section 2, Tipu Sultan, the innovator.
So, picture the 18th century. The Mughal Empire is crumbling, and the British East India Company is just swallowing India piece by piece. Facing this hyper-aggressive expansion, the ruler of Mysore, Tipu Sultan, realized pretty quickly that traditional swords and bravery just weren't going to cut it anymore. To fight a modern enemy, he desperately needed cutting-edge tech. Now at the time, European rockets were basically just large fireworks. We're talking bamboo or paper casings, really low pressure, and a super short range. But Tipu's rockets, completely different story. He started using soft iron for the propellant chambers. This massively increased the compression and the thrust, giving his rockets an unbelievable 2-kilometer range. I mean, these were essentially the cruise missiles of his era.
And he didn't just build a handful of them to show off. No, Tipu established a massive military-industrial complex called Tara Mendelpeth. He deployed over 5,000 trained rocket men into a specialized force. Imagine thousands of these iron-cased rockets, some even fitted with sharp swords, literally raining down from the sky. They absolutely decimated British forces at battles like Pollilur. It completely broke their formations and sent them into total panic.
But here is the really tragic truth about all this. While incredible technology can absolutely stop an enemy's advance, it really can't stop a dagger in the back. In 1798, Lord Wellesley arrived, and he didn't just bring cannons, he brought gold to bribe Tipu's inner circle, and it worked. By early 1799, the fort was besieged, and on the midday of May 4th, Tipu's own prime minister, Mir Sadiq, literally cleared the defense lines, just letting the British walk right into the fort of Seringapatam.
Now, when the fort was breached, Tipu actually had a chance to escape, but instead he grabbed a sword and fought on the front lines like a common soldier. He famously declared that it is far better to live one day as a lion than 100 years as a jackal. He completely refused to surrender, and his final stand at the Watergate that afternoon really secured his legacy as a fierce, dignified innovator, which perfectly sets the stage for our next brilliant, but definitely controversial disruptor.
Moving on to Section 3, Abdul Hamid II, the last guardian.
Let's fast forward to the 19th century. Sultan Abdul Hamid II takes the throne of a completely bankrupt Ottoman Empire. He basically inherited a crown of thorns. Since he knew he couldn't win on the actual battlefield, he transformed into this grand master on the diplomatic chessboard, using a brilliant divide-and-survive strategy. Check this out. If Russia advanced, he'd immediately warn Britain about threats to India. If Britain started pushing, he'd bring in Germany as a modernization partner, building things like the Berlin-Baghdad Railway. He just expertly played these greedy European empires against one another to keep his territory intact.
But beyond just diplomacy, he also wielded this really unique spiritual weapon, pan-Islamism. As the Caliph, his goal was to unite millions of Muslims globally, many of whom were actually living under British or French colonial rule at the time. To really solidify this, he launched these massive, crowd-funded mega projects, like the Hijaz Railway, which connected Istanbul all the way to Medina. And you gotta understand, this wasn't just infrastructure, it was a huge spiritual deterrent. It signaled to European colonizers that any attack on his empire could instantly spark a global uprising. And his resolve? It was rock solid. It was famously tested by Theodor Herzl, the founder of the Zionist movement. Herzl literally offered to completely pay off the Ottoman Empire's massive, crippling debt in exchange for permission to settle Jews in Palestine. But Abdul Hamid flatly refused. He famously stated that he couldn't sell even an inch of his empire because it belonged to his nation and simply wasn't for sale. He actively chose ideological honor over what would have been a very easy financial bailout.
However, if we're looking at the evidence impartially, his deep fear of the empire collapsing led to some really severe domestic consequences. He completely suspended the 1876 Parliament and the Constitution and centralized all state power directly into his own hands. And when Christian Armenian populations rebelled, he crushed the uprising with absolute ruthlessness, which is exactly what earned him the title of the Red Sultan in the West. This iron grip of his created an intense atmosphere of suffocation among his own people, especially among the youth and secular intellectuals.
Ultimately, though, this heavy-handed strategy completely backfired. His suppression directly birthed the Young Turks Revolution in 1908, and by 1909, Abdul Hamid was deposed by his very own army. But here is the tragic irony of the whole situation. The very revolutionaries who removed him ended up plunging the empire straight into World War I. Within just a decade of deposing him, the massive empire he had expertly protected for 33 years was completely devastated, dismantled, and the caliphate was officially abolished in 1924.
Which brings us to Section 4, MBS, the modern disruptor. All right, bringing us right up to the 21st century. Mohammed bin Salman, or MBS, leveraged a really profound ambition to rapidly outmaneuver his older, much more powerful cousins to become Saudi Arabia's ultimate ruler. And he didn't just want to rule, he wanted to completely upend the status quo. Through his Vision 2030, he is radically modernizing the country. We're talking ending their massive dependency on oil, aggressively investing in global assets like Uber and Newcastle United, empowering women to drive, opening cinemas, and shifting the core national identity away from strict religious foundations toward a more secular Saudi nationalism. He's essentially treating the monarchy like a mega corporation, even pushing staggering $500 billion futuristic projects like the AI city, Neom.
But you have to realize that this modernization comes with a very severe social contract. MBS basically operates with a velvet glove and an iron fist. The velvet glove offers these unprecedented social freedoms, global tourism, and modern entertainment like Riyadh Season. But the iron fist, that demands absolute, unquestioning political loyalty. He completely sidelined powerful rivals by literally turning the Riyadh Ritz-Carlton into a luxury prison during his 2017 purge. And he has brutally crushed dissent, drawing immense global condemnation, most notably for the horrific assassination of journalist Jamal Khashoggi.
Internationally, his impatient, risk-taking mindset has been playing out in real time for us to see. He launched an incredibly costly and devastating war in Yemen, and he initiated a multi-year diplomatic boycott of neighboring Qatar, both of which, honestly, largely failed to achieve their original goals. Yet he's also recently demonstrated a surprising capacity to adapt. In 2023, he secured this massive, totally unexpected diplomatic reset with major rival Iran, which was actually brokered by China. So love him or hate him, he is a disruptor who flat out refuses to accept the region's status quo.
And finally, Section 5, the verdict of history. So we have now examined 3 very distinct leaders across 3 entirely different centuries, and I think they prove that true historical disruption is almost never clean or simple. We've seen brilliant innovation, grand strategy, and rapid modernization on one side, but we've also seen betrayal, intense suppression, and violence on the other. So as you act as the jury today, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. When a nation's very existence or its future is truly at stake, where exactly do we draw the line between a visionary savior and a ruthless dictator? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and always keep questioning history.